This is White Plains Week, the weekly news roundup. With your moderator, John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains Citizen Net Reporter. Jim Benerofe, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. And Peter Katz, noted broadcaster and journalist. White Plains Week, what's happened, who are the newsmakers, and what's in store for the future. The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented Fridays at 7:30 and again on Mondays at 7 p.m. here on Channel 76. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. White Plains and Westchester, and all you budgeteers out there. My wife thanks you, I thank you, my children thank you, and White Plains thanks you. John Bailey here.
For what?
Well, you're going to find out. You're so impatient.
Well, don't keep me waiting. I want to know.
Right. This is the City News Roundup Show, and I'm with Jim Benerofe with the headlines.
And here are the headlines for the week of April the 8th, 2016. The winter has ended, but the melody lingers on. Cold, wet weather grips the city. City proposes smallest tax increase in 16 years of budgets. Stays under tax cap. Sustainable Westchester mails White Plains residents with its fixed electric rate proposal. You have 20 days to opt out. City Council passes overhaul of White Plains taxi operations. Fees. Cabs now must have taximeters. Fares could double. Interloping cabs without a medallion face heavy fines. School district sets town meetings on dual language expansion to conform under new regulations on handling English language learners. Parents complain about after-school busing to religious instruction being dropped. School district mulls reinstatement. 13% of White Plains students in grades 3 to 8 are held back from English language assessment tests. Council approves Esplanade building. Council extends upscale mall opposite Bloomingdale's on Bloomingdale Road. Star rebate delayed for new homeowners.
Thank you, Jim. And of course, we are also joined, as always, by the anchor for all seasons, being given an exclusive non-sequitur introduction today in his honor. Peter Katz, of course. Now let's go to the White Plains Week, Rollo Newsreel March of Time, and winter keeps marching on even though spring is already knocking on the door and is supposedly here. And like last Monday morning, we saw trees downed, we saw snow, and
well, just this morning, did you notice hail?
Yeah, on the way over to the studios. Yeah. Unbelievable.
And the forecast for the weekend is a possible mix of slushy accumulation of snow and
yes.
sleet more. That's, my goodness, global warming certainly has made it cold.
Yeah, what's warm about it? That's what I'd like to know. What is warm about global warming?
It's easier to say global warming than it is to say global colding.
Yeah, that's true.
Governor Cuomo tried to get people to warm up to him again this week. On Monday, he signed legislation which will raise the minimum wage in New York State to $15 an hour, but it won't reach that until the very end of 2018.
Right, and that is good news for some people, but the phase it is intriguing because if inflation rears back ahead,
well, you're going to find yourself well behind.
Back in the behind zone.
But
Right.
in New York City, it goes up first by the end of this year. It's going to be $10.50 an hour minimum wage in New York City. But the rest of the state now actually hits $12.50 an hour on December 31st of 2020. You see. Now, according to
that depressed area,
according to Cuomo, about 2.3 million people will be affected by this. It is rather complex. So if you think that all of a sudden, after him signing this on Monday, you're going to see more money in your paycheck, not quite. Doesn't quite work that way.
Right, and
the other thing that doesn't quite work that way is another benefit, which is a requirement for paid family leave. There's a complex formula there. Eventually, if you're a worker in New York State, your employer will be, generally speaking, required to give you paid family leave.
Yes, but you have to have a baby, which is another proposition altogether. You just can't say, hey, I can get family leave.
No, well, you also can do it if you're caring for a family member who has a very serious health condition. So.
Well, you could adopt a baby on a regular basis.
Yeah, and actually, you can also do it if you
sorry
have.
I brought this up.
If you have a family member who's called up to military service, say to go fight in Iraq or someplace like that, and you find yourself under great pressure, you can then apply for this family leave.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm very glad you brought up those other advantages of family leave the way it's been proposed, because I've aged out of most of those.
Ah,
yes,
okay.
so therefore I wasn't paying attention.
Well, you know, maybe we could arrange for you to go fight a war in the Middle East.
Hey, look, we're never leaving that place. Never.
Some viewers might like that. Well, maybe not.
Anyway, moving on, I want to say, folks, this is a very complex show tonight, and, you know, it is not for the faint of heart. And
that's for sure.
So
pay attention.
If
goes
you
by
are
very quickly.
Razzle-dazzled by figures and just can't follow them, I suggest you turn your sets off now.
Talk about figures. Hold up that thick book in front of you.
Yes.
Let people know what that is.
This is.
You hear budgets? Talk about budgets. Holy mackerel.
That's right.
It glares
very
a little
thick.
bit. Yeah, very thick book of the city's budget.
Right.
Which has something really good happening on the inside, right?
Let's take a look at this. They are proposing only a 0.01% tax increase this year.
Well, it's actually 0.1. The decimal point is in the wrong place on that graphic. It's a 1/10 of 1% tax increase. Yeah. If we understand it correctly.
Well, that's what okay, and so there's $183.8 million we're going to spend. It's a $46 million increase from last year, 2.6%.
Budget spending increase is 2.6, but the tax increase is minuscule.
1/10 of 1%.
And of course, one might ask, well, if they can get it down that low, why couldn't they get it down to zero with a little more effort?
You're so greedy, Peter, so greedy. I mean, they are so stressed keeping all those services going.
Hey, you know, if the Common Council wanted to put on a show, they could make a big argument in a public meeting about, you know, we have to do a little more to trim, and then we can make it a zero increase.
What you know, you never know. That might be something Thompson and Bender might think of. Huh?
As their PR.
Jim, your opinion on the budget?
I think it's great. I think they did a really good job. You know, and if we can keep doing this every year, I think we'll be in good shape.
Yes, that would be nice. Let's set up a winning streak here.
Do you suppose it could be used as an example for the school board?
Yes. Good idea.
That was a low blow. They're working so hard over there, and they're so mindful. They're mindful over there. Right. Now, the intriguing thing about this budget is that it only raises the tax on the middle White Plains home, which is about $650,000 of assessed value, $3.
$3,
Yes.
a $3 increase.
No, it's less than that. It's only 21 cents on the tax rate. That's right.
Well, not tax rate, but at the end of the year, you know,
it's only $3.
You've written checks that'll be what, $3 more than they were last year.
Well, for the city,
portion
but,
of the tax.
Not the same with the school district, but we'll get to that on another night. But anyway, they have given us this wonderful thing, and it's.
And so they're not having to fire people to do this.
No.
They're not having to cut salaries
No.
to do this, right?
No.
They're not having to stop garbage collection to
No.
do this, right?
No, they are paying for this by raising various licenses and permits, an increase of $1.5 million. Building department fees will increase by $843,000 with no change in rates. Rates charged by Public Works for various permits such as street openings, street obstructions, and sidewalk cafes are proposed to increase, as are rates for licenses and permits in public safety. And
So if you don't do too much in the city, it won't cost you much more.
right, yeah, absolutely.
And what about parking rates? Now,
Parking
typically,
rates.
if a city, you know, wants to increase its revenues, they jack up the parking rates. Does that happen?
Yes, they're jacking up the parking permit rates.
But not the meter rates, as
Not
far
the
as we
meter.
know up to now.
I haven't gotten that deep into it because it's just
A
look
lot of
at that.
pages.
Look at that. I mean, come on. They rely on that. Now, let's go to
John, you'd better read it thoroughly because there will be a quiz.
Oh, please, the umpire's test is bad enough. Now, let's go to the shocker of the week. And it arrived in this envelope at my world headquarters on Monday. And that's what it looked like. It was a plain white envelope with a little, what they say in the direct mail business, a teaser on the front. And as of today, the letter that was enclosed was dated March 28th, 2016. And as of today, Mr. and Mrs. White Plains, you have 15 days to opt out of Sustainable Westchester.
If you want to. Now, this is the program where
Next slide.
all electricity customers in White Plains, residential or commercial, will be automatically switched from receiving Con Edison electricity to electricity from Sustainable Westchester. Now, as it turns out, Sustainable Westchester has a contract with something called Con Edison Solutions.
A Con Ed subsidiary.
So that if you're a Con Edison customer and they switch you out of Con Edison, they're really switching you back to a subsidiary of Con Edison.
Right.
And as a result of that switch, they say you will be paying slightly less for the electricity that you use.
And the basic rate, which is 7.3 cents per kilowatt hour.
That they are charging. Now, they
Yes,
have
right.
what's called the green option, which costs slightly more, and what that means is that it's generated by renewable sources, such as wind,
And that will
solar,
cost you slightly more.
hydropower, etc., and they charge slightly more for that. Now, they are saying that all customers who go into this Sustainable Westchester program
Yes.
will be signed up initially for the higher green
Yeah.
rate.
Yeah, next slide, please. And there it is. This is to be found on the Westchester
Sustainable
Westchester website, and it lists the various communities that are part of this consortium, and there's White Plains right in the bottom, and it shows that it has opted for the green default, and that works out to 0.0768 on the far right. So that's what you will get if you do nothing. And then, if you want to switch, you can, but you have to tell them you want the basic option.
Right,
They-
to
right.
get the lower rate
Exactly.
that they offer. Now, you can do this, all these changes, by sending back a postcard, which should have been enclosed in the mailing you received, but we understand that some people may not have had the mailing complete with that postcard, in which case you can go onto their website
You haven't gotten this
and
mailing.
You can opt out or change it as you wish. I did not receive the mailing. I know, John, you received it. Jim, you received it.
You're on the do not notify list.
I did not receive it. Now, whether that means that I automatically will be enrolled or not, I don't know, but I certainly plan to sign on to their website and see exactly what the deal is here.
Yeah. Right, and that website, if we can back up the slide a second, the websites are at the bottom of your screen,
WestchesterPower.org or ConEdSolutions.com. The only question I have now, Con Edison will still be charging whatever they charge for delivery of the electricity.
Right.
It's only the actual electrons themselves which will be sold to you at a lower rate. So if I'm a Con Edison customer and Sustainable Westchester is able to work out a deal with Con Edison's Solutions Company to get me a lower rate, why wasn't I getting lower rate all along as a Con Edison customer?
It's an interesting question, and I'll call up Con Ed and see what they have to say about that this week, because we just found out about this yesterday because Brenda Starr, who always advises me in these situations, went on the website and found that grid and found, to her surprise, she was going to go with the green option anyway, that the green option was automatic.
It seems to me that we're going through an awfully complicated song and dance here just to buy our electrons from Con Edison.
Well, these are new, approved, clean electrons, so they cost more. Wouldn't you say? You know, it's like, well, anyway, Jim, are you going to fight or switch?
I haven't got the foggiest idea.
It's an old
Maybe I should
advertising
sell the house.
You know,
Yeah, right. Try.
it shows you how complex finances can be. We
told you this was
we have
complex.
this
We
budget,
told you. We warned
this
you.
heavy budget here.
Yes.
Then we have the electricity costs, which are complex. Next thing you know, when you want to take a taxi cab, that's going to be complex too. You're going to need a master's degree in mathematics or physics in order to get into a taxi
Master of
cab.
the Segway.
Well,
And
the one thing I don't understand about the taxi, you know, they talk about interloper cabs.
That might be Uber. They're talking about Uber. They're talking about
I don't know,
gypsy
but
cabs
the
from
problem
the
is what
Bronx.
happens if somebody picks up a cab in, let's say, Chappaqua and is going to White Plains?
well, you can drop them off, but you,
can
can't
drop off,
pick
but
up.
you can't pick up.
You can drop
This-
off,
this-
but you
folks,
can't
this-
pick up.
This
How
has
will they
to do with the new taxi laws, which
Right.
were voted into effect by the Common Council just recently.
And these are the new rates, which you do not know because it was not included in the press release. Here they are. First 2/8 of a mile, $4, automatic. An additional 25 cents for each 1/8 of a mile on the ride. 5 minutes of waiting time, first 5 minutes of waiting time, $2. Plus $1 per passenger in your party. Say you're taking someone to the station and helping them with bags or something, well, that person is charged an extra $1. Now, to the train station, I generally paid about $6 under the old system. And the old system will be still in effect for about 3 months. And then these new rates kick in.
Well, now all the
So it
taxis
could double.
they will have to put in meters, just as you have in New York City, so people are familiar with that. And they have created a hailing zone downtown, so that you can hail a cab on the street.
Yes, here's the hailing zone.
In a section of the city.
Yes, it is basically the entire downtown core is what the hailing zone is. And then we have fines. Next up, the fines are quite steep for persons, cab drivers not having a medallion, and that could be a nice new source of revenue for the city. Because I'm told Jim Morricone is our guest on People to Be Heard this week,
And who is
he is
Jim?
a
Who is he?
limousine driver. He helped found the Westchester Cab Owners Association way back in the early 1990s, and he talks a great deal about Uber on People to Be Heard
So Uber would be one of the interloper
Yes.
operators or non-medallion operators in the city.
Well, like they charge a lot of money well, anyway, Mr.
Watch
Marconi
the
says
show.
it for
We'll
himself.
hear what he has to say,
That's
and that'll
right.
be on many of these same stations,
Right.
or you can see it online, either on whiteplainsweek.com or on YouTube.
Yeah, right, yes. We haven't put up the show quite yet, but it will be up for your viewing pleasure. Now,
Oh, I want to mention, since we're talking about downtown, something
Yes.
happened downtown this week. The Hillary Clinton folks opened a campaign office in downtown White Plains. It is at 188 Martine Avenue in the heart of downtown. So they'll be able to hail cabs if she comes to town to campaign,
Yes.
stops in the office, she can go downstairs
Where
and
exactly
hail a
is
cab.
188 Martine?
It's at 188 Martine.
does Mr. Trump have a headquarters yet?
No, I haven't. I have not heard anything back from Trump headquarters. I did hear from Bernie Sanders' campaign. He will be in town in Brooklyn, actually,
Is he coming to White
today.
Plains?
He has 2 events in Brooklyn today. Tomorrow he has an event, tomorrow Saturday, at the Apollo Theater.
Maybe you'll come in and cook.
Haven't heard anything from the Trump campaign about whether he'll be campaigning in Westchester. He did have a huge rally out in Bethpage on Long Island this past week. It attracted something like 18,000 people inside. It's at what's called Grumman Studios, which really it's the old Grumman aircraft
And
plant.
no one was mugged.
There were a couple of arrests
I see.
of
Okay.
demonstrators,
That's good.
so I'm told. And nothing from Kasich. John Kasich was doing some campaigning in the Bronx on Arthur Avenue yesterday, feasting at an Italian restaurant.
I don't know why John Kasich hasn't done more stuff in New York. I would laugh my head off if he won New York.
He's not.
Actually, at the moment, the latest poll shows Trump with 52%, Kasich with 25%, and not Rubio, Cruz trailing behind.
14%.
At the moment, it appears that Hillary Clinton is about 10 points ahead of Bernie Sanders on the Democratic side in the primary.
Well, that's within striking distance.
All of this can change very, very quickly at the drop of a hat, so stay tuned.
Well, things are changing in White Plains over at the school district this week on Monday evening. Dr. Paul Freed, the superintendent of schools, presented the latest on our dual language situation in White Plains, which is being looked at being expanded to comply with the Section 154 regulations requiring new required treatment of English language learners. Dr. Freed has scheduled 3 town meetings there, April the 14th at White Plains High School at 7 p.m., April the 18th at White Plains High School at 7 p.m., and over at Central Hispano at 7 p.m. on April 28th, where the presentation will be in Spanish. And those are to get community input on what we should do, expand a dual language situation, or go to just basically treating the English language learners as a separate entity. That's basically the 2 choices. Dr. Freed wants to expand the dual language, and he shared these results of the New York State assessment data for George Washington and Post Road schools. And as you can see, the reddish color is the dual language students and their test results on the ELA compared with the whole school. Now, what is interesting about this, there is not too much difference between the scores, still extremely low, 30 in the 30s, and to my way of thinking, the big question this raises is, well, if they didn't have the dual language, would they be scoring a lot worse? You don't know.
All you know is the whole thing is still controversial, as much as they have tried to sort it all out.
Yeah.
But there's a new controversy affecting the school district, and that's some parents who are pretty upset that there's an issue with busing.
Right, thank you for reminding me of that. At the meeting, about 6 parents came up and spoke at length. We videotaped some of them. I got to look at the tape, see whether we want to put them on. But at any rate, they complained that at the beginning of the year, they were told that they would no longer have their children bused from their schools to places of religious instruction where they sent them after school. This had always been done for years in White Plains. Now, the explanation was that some lawyer, who apparently remains nameless, had advised the school district that they shouldn't be doing this because it's separation of church and school, stuff like that. But come on, you have buses dropping kids off at daycare people who are taking care of your kids after school, and whether or not you opt for the religious, whether it's religious or not, I don't see why they did this. This is one more example of doing something that's politically correct.
Well, politically correct, or there's a matter of the Constitution calling for separation of church and state. So school is part of the state, I suppose. This will have to work itself out. We've heard other controversies.
Well, let somebody say.
Like
they
this.
drop off kids at daycare, but not at religious. Suppose it's a religious daycare place.
It's the kind of thing that could very well wind up in court. You know?
A real good Supreme Court case, I would say, don't you? Yeah, that's right.
Could be. You know, there's no court case on the Esplanade. That has gotten final approval, seemingly without too much controversy on the Common Council when they considered that. And this is converting the Esplanade, which had been a senior citizen care facility for many, many years, into modern apartments to try to attract millennials. So we have emptied out a building of seniors in order to bring in a building of millennials.
Right. Jim, you are behind this development. You feel this is good.
Yeah, I do feel it's good. First of all, the Esplanade was not originally intended to be a senior citizen home. It was a hotel. And why they changed that, I don't know what the history of that is. But they seem to have been able to relocate most of the families or the individuals without any super serious consequences.
So that paved the way, of course, for the council to go ahead and say, okay, you can go convert the building and do what you want.
Yeah.
One other thing that the council did, which we should note, you know, there's this project at 120 Bloomingdale for basically an expanded strip mall with restaurants and so forth. It's been you know, approved for years now. And so the developer still hasn't started construction on it, but they extended the site plan again for the developer.
Once you get a site plan, it never dies. That's a lesson. Oh, opt-out rates over at the assessment tests, ELAs, 414 of 3,185 students eligible to take it, grades 3 to 8, opted out. 13%. 87% took the tests, and grades 3 to 5, 118, and middle school, big thing there, 18%. John Bailey, Peter Katz, Jim Benerofe. Good night for White Plains Week.
White Plains Week has been a presentation of White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, WPCNR.com, in cooperation with Channel 76. Comments may be emailed to WPCNR@AOL.com. The copyrighted print White Plains Cityscape by Leonard Weber is used courtesy of the White Plains Presbyterian Church. For information on its availability, you may contact the church at 761-8585. The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented Fridays at 7:30 and again on Mondays at 7 p.m. here on Channel 76. For White Plains Week, this is Seth Benerofe speaking.